So thank you very much all for staying with us. We will then start the afternoon sessions. We will go right straight to the panel, which is going to be focused on achieving a more sustainable world, the role of aeronautics, space, and defense. The moderator will be Sofia Santos, founder and CEO of SYSTEMICSPHERE, who will present the panel and moderate the session. I again reinforce to the audience that there's an opportunity always to put questions throughout the sessions, and those the best voted ones will go through to moderator. So please, again, take advantage of that, and I hope you enjoy this very interesting panel. Sofia, please go ahead.
Become more sustainable. We know this is a very relevant topic nowadays. Countries around the world have committed to become carbon neutral by the end of the century. At Europe, we have the commitment to become carbon neutral by 2050, hopefully. And we also have the Sustainable Development Goals, which provide us with a general agenda for 2030, where other topics from environmental, social, gender issues are also relevant. And today, this afternoon session is to be about all of these issues. So we will have about 1 hour and 50 minutes, which is not that much time for the 7 speakers we have. So as you can see from the program, we will have 7 speakers from different companies and from different organizations. I will introduce each speaker before its presentation. And at the end of the presentation moment, we will have some time for some Q&A. And please, once again, ask your questions, because I believe this session will bring you will bring to all of us some questions that might be relevant to think about what can we do, what this sector can do in order to become even more sustainable due to the important role that it has nowadays. So, as I said, we will start with Rui Marcelino, that is the CEO and design manager at ALMADESIGN, and then we'll move with the other speakers, and I will introduce each of the speakers before each presentation. So for now, I will pass the word to Rui Marcelino. If you could please just give us your presentation and your views about what's happening in Portugal on this issue.
Okay, thank you, Sofia, and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for the introduction. As ALMADESIGN CEO and AED Vice President, it is a great honor to participate in this panel. Well, my short presentation is divided in 3 topics: the role of aeronautics, space and defense, the Portuguese ecosystem, and drivers for the future. Well, to achieve a more sustainable world, we need a sustainable development, as you know. And sustainable development is the one that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And this should be our starting point. But what could be the role of aeronautics, space and defense in this sustainable development? Well, as you probably know, back in 1968, Bill Anders in the Apollo 8 took one of the first pictures of Earth from space. And lately, he claimed that we set out to explore the moon, and instead, we have discovered the Earth. Well, I believe there is no better way to frame how the AED areas can put Earth and the world in perspective. They enable us to see the big picture, and in the case of Earth, a beautiful and fragile picture. While following this new Earth perspective, the goals for sustainable development...
Thank you very much all for staying with us. We will then start the afternoon sessions. We will go right straight.
The SDG have been summarized by the United Nations.
Focus on achieving a more sustainable world, the role of aeronautics, space.
I'm listening to background noise. Is it okay?
Sofia Santos, from the founder and CEO.
Desligar a plataforma.
Yep.
Present the panel and...
Sorry, that was me. So without losing time, let me continue. So in the space area, as you probably know, the Space for SDG initiative has specified a list of applications from aeronautics, space and defense that can help to achieve the SDG goals, from world surveillance to connectivity. But also in the aeronautic area, initiatives like the Clean Sky, together with broader initiatives like the Green Deal, are raising the level of sustainability challenges for Europe. And the targets for 2050, as presented by ACAR and the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda, are getting more and more higher. Well, the Clean Sky program itself has already identified some technology flagships for aeronautics and the links to related areas. Things like disruptive urban air mobility, hybrid electric regional aircrafts, and Industry 4.0 among them. And what have we been doing in Portugal for this sustainable development in the AED sector, namely in the previous identified flagships? Well, I can't help mentioning our own experience back in 2012, when we aligned Portuguese SMEs, R&D institutions, and EMBRAER to launch the LIFE project, addressing natural materials, lightweight interiors, and improved life cycle analysis. This case was referenced by OCDE as a case study of collaboration for green growth and sustainability. In another perspective, New Phase was an R&D collaboration project, again, dedicated to the study of future aircraft configurations for eco-efficiency. Its output integrated things like new configurations and new aerodynamic solutions, but also new materials and production processes, and new operation models and propulsion systems. This project was ended in 2016, and later, likewise, the Flexcraft project addressed electric hybrid propulsion and more efficient models of operation for people and goods. In another perspective, FlyPT is a national mobilizer project that holds 22 partners together addressing disruptive urban air mobility and autonomous air vehicle. It is a good example of collaboration in R&D that has been fostered by the AED cluster. Another example that Portuguese have been addressed in this topic has been our participation in some of the first electrical aircraft projects in the world, such as Aviation Alice. But also, we have proved the possibility of good cooperation between European and Chinese partners, as it is demonstrated through the Eco-Compass project. On the more efficient manufacturing technologies, the FASTEN project is linking Portugal and Brazil in their R&D efforts. And on the security area, Pandora project is developing a cyber defense platform for threat hunting, incident response, and information sharing with so many different countries. Finally, in the space area, the European Space Agency is working presently with local partners' technologies to detect plastics in the sea. So these are some examples to highlight what we have been doing in the Portuguese ecosystem. And now, what are the drivers for the future and what can we expect? Well, as referred in this morning's session, these very challenging times make the investment on new technologies and processes absolutely mandatory, turning the present crisis into new opportunities. The Next Generation EU initiative is also providing the planning and I would say the tools to achieve this endeavor. AED sectors cannot continue to explore these topics on their own. We must develop key technologies for sustainability with other related areas, such as mobility, infrastructures, and social challenges. Together, we need to explore cleaner energies, electrification, alternative fuels, reduce emissions, sustainable products, and mobility as a service. Well, these are also opportunities for newcomers. Portugal has many highly skilled professionals, trustable companies, and institutions. It is also taking the lead in several other technology areas, such as hydrogen, solar power, and autonomous vehicles. So this is my last slide. To comply with the Sustainable Development Growth objectives and the Next Generation EU objectives, we need to foster national and international network cooperation, where Portugal, AED, and the members of this panel can have a really relevant role. In this process, this multidisciplinary process, design integrates different contributions and stakeholders, governments, researchers, industries, and society. And design provides a common vision of the future solutions and scenarios towards this more sustainable world vision. Besides our role as designers, I believe this is also our mission at AED. I thank you so much for your attention, and please feel free to ask any questions here or through my contacts above. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Alexis, just now we are going to have our keynote speaker, Alain Alexis, is the Director of Defense of Industry Directorate at the European Commission, and he's going to be our keynote speaker of this second session. And he will bring us with new information about how we can connect the defense industry and the space sector with sustainability, providing us with a European perspective. Alain Alexis, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, and thank you very much for a kind invitation to be with you this afternoon. I think it's a very good timing to discuss this topic, defense, space, aeronautics, in connection with green economy, with climate change. I think it's quite important for the Commission, because as you know, it's a priority for the Commission. And of course, it's common sense to say this, but we have a new international situation since last year, with probably two important elements on which I think we need to insist. First, climate change, of course, and the obligation for the EU, but also for member states to act rapidly in the field of climate change. We know the situation very recently in some member states where we have serious difficulty with modification of the climate. The second element is, of course, politically, is COVID crisis, something totally new. Nobody could have imagined such catastrophic situation 1 year ago, but we are there. If I can say one positive element, it's a little bit difficult to say there is positive element in COVID, but one positive element is following COVID crisis, I think everybody in Europe has understood the meaning of independence, sovereignty, resilience. This is a quite important context. Everybody now understand why, for some strategic product, which can be very simple math, everybody understand why, for some product like this, it's quite important to be independent and to have a possibility to have our own industry in Europe. Second consequence of COVID is, of course, regarding a business. Economic crisis is catastrophic for quite high number of sectors in Europe. It put at risk a high number of jobs, and so we need to react on this. Of course, aeronautics is particularly concerned. You have just to go to the airport and you see that the airports are totally empty. So it's quite serious situation for aeronautic. Space and defense, the situation is a little bit different. Probably it's more long-term consequences, but nevertheless, for space, for defense, we need to be very reactive and very prudent on the supply chain, because we have quite high number of important defense companies in Europe, but we have also thousands and thousands of SME in the supply chain. And we need to protect the supply chain because they are necessary for defense industry and space industry, including in Portugal, including in Spain, including in Italy. We need to protect this company. For this company, what is for us also important to have in mind is this company normally are dual, because we always say defense industry, but normally defense industry, except very limited exception, defense industry doesn't exist. What we have is we have industry, which most of the time are dual. We have civil activity, we have defense activity, and both need to be protected for security of Europe and the protection of jobs. The new magic word which appear with COVID is resilience. Now, of course, now everybody say, well, we must be resilient. Yes, what does it mean? We need to be resilient. First, I think resilience, it's quite important politically to insist on the fact that resilience is not protectionism. Because, as you know, we had quite difficult discussion with third countries. Resilience is not protectionism. The objective is not to develop fortress Europe. Not at all. It's not a political objective. The best example is, of course, for defense industry. We have close relations with NATO. We need to keep this cooperation with NATO. The objective is not to develop something else. The objective is to complement what we have with NATO. We have some 22 EU member states which are also members of NATO. So we need to be coherent and to develop capability with the objective of resilience. So for us, resilience means technological independence, of course, but not everywhere, because it will be totally naive to consider that we will be in the next 5 or 10 years, we will be independent in everywhere on technology. Totally naive. We cannot do this, but for some strategic domain linked to security of supply, linked to health, linked to some aspect on climate change, we need to build something new and to be resilient and independent. So in practice, linked to climate change, what can we do? Climate change has, of course, an impact on space, an impact on defense, an impact on aeronautics. But probably more important for me is not the impact of climate change on space, defense, and aeronautics. It's the impact of defense, space, and aeronautics on climate change. What can we do? So we can say, okay, there is a problem. Yes, but the identification of a problem is a good step, but it's not enough. When we have identified a problem, we need to work on possible solutions. So what can we do? Let's start with defense industry. For defense industry, we have launched a number of programs with EU budget. We have notably a development program, a so-called ADIDP program, which is a program where we put EU money for the development of new technology or new actions in the field of defense, with a final objective of having capability, but the objective is to develop technology. Potential domain to support are discussed with member states in so-called program committee. So we have quite open discussion with member states. Everybody say, well, we should develop technology in this domain, and so we need to find a consensus. But when looking to a different domain, of course, climate change is taken into account. Let me take some example. In the last call from 2019 for ADIDP, SME, we have a specific call for SME. SME have been invited to submit detailed proposals with innovative solutions regarding bio-based fuel, solar tracking system, renewable energy production. So Second example, in a different call, we look to the development of technology to increase efficiency across all the life of a product. So, and on this, we receive quite interesting proposals. A third very concrete example, we have a project which is a so-called SPINAR project, which has been selected recently by the Commission for disruptive technology, because we have specific aspects of disruptive technology, and here we can support the development of new ideas, having in mind long-term development. So for disruptive technology, we have this project where we will support, and the objective is to combine nanotechnology with artificial intelligence for the development of new system of radar with low power consumption and better efficiency. This is what we do now with a budget. More important is what we will do in 21, because for 21, we will have in the next multi-annual framework. So normally we will have a budget around 1 billion every year for research and development. So budget is limited, but with 1 billion, we can start doing something in cooperation with member states. But again, here the objective is to tackle some aspect linked to climate change, even if it is not a priority number one of European Defence Fund. Of course, priority number one of European Defence Fund is to support the development of capability, but aspect of climate change will be taken into consideration. And we are working with member states on trying to identify main domain for the next 7 years, and one domain, so-called cluster. We like this wording of cluster. It's in practice, it's a domain of activities. It's a cluster look always more sexy, but in practice, it is a domain of activity. And one cluster will be energy resilience and environmental transition. So during the next 7 years, one cluster will be dedicated to climate change. And at this stage, of course, we don't know which specific project we will support because we need to start long discussion with member states to identify a work program. But it will be one of the priority for European Defence Fund in the next 7 years. We will also have a category for SME. SME are quite important because, as you know, SME, 99% of companies in Europe are SME. So the objective is not only to support big companies, but SME can be very innovative, particularly in link between new technology and climate change. So we will have a specific category for SME, and we will invite SME to work on this. Disruptive technology, we will put money on disruptive technology because if we want to be active for the next 20 years, it is where we need to put the money because we need to conduct research, not only nice speeches, but actions, and we need to support research. Of course, when doing this, again, the objective is to have in mind defense. But we all know in the field of research, in the field of defense, there is always huge external beneficiary for civil research. So what we will do in the field of defense, of course, will benefit to a certain extent to civil activities, particularly in the domain of climate change. Second example, aeronautics. To assess the situation, again, it's very simple. You go to the airport and you see that the airports are empty. Of course, we could say it's good because in terms of climate change, it's very good news. I'm not sure in long term it's so good because we need this business and we need to protect the economic activity, the competitiveness of European company and the creation of jobs. We do not know when we will come back to normal activity, but we need to invest now. I think we need to work on two aspects, two challenges for aeronautics. First, the economic crisis, of course, COVID. We need to ensure that the company will survive. Climate change emissions. What does it mean in practice? It means that for industry like aeronautics, of course, climate change is a challenge. But we should not look to the challenge. We should look to the opportunity. climate change is a huge opportunity for the industry. Why? Because everywhere in the world, companies will have to invest in research and development. To invest in research and development, to build new plants for the next 25 years, next 30 years, to reduce emissions, we need to put money now on European industry. We need to protect this industry to be sure that we will have this industry in the next 20 years. It's part of resilience, because the industry most of the time is dual. So we need this industry not only for civil but also for defense, and we need to put money there. Where can we find the money? I think we have mainly two instruments. The European Defence Fund, I just mentioned for defense, because here it's dual, and this company can benefit from the European Defence Fund. Second, we have civil program. We have a civil program for research and development. So aeronautics should be part of this program. And of course, we have a recovery plan, which has been discussed. Well, we have political agreement of member states. The industry should benefit from the recovery plan to build the future of Europe. Of course, in a recovery plan, we will not decide, because the main competence to decide on a recovery plan is with member states. But we need to influence the decision of member states. Member states have to have in mind that we need this industry, and to ensure that we will put enough money to protect the business. Last element, and I will stop there, space. This is of course a quite important industry in Europe. We have a chance of having very good company in Europe. We need to protect this industry. We need to protect this industry first because there are thousands of jobs linked to this, and second because it's linked to climate change. Let's take the example of Copernicus. When we need to know which is the situation in a specific country, we need Copernicus. We need to have a view of all the situation in Europe. So we don't know what will be the budget for in the next MFF for Copernicus and Galileo, but again we will have a budget for this activity, and we need to invest in this domain. So just to conclude on this, two points important for me. First, resilience. We need to ensure resilience of the industry because we need this industry for the security of Europe. We need this industry to improve the situation regarding climate change. Second element, climate change is not a problem for the industry. Climate change is a huge opportunity, because if we put enough money on research and development, this is the best way to have competitive industry for the next 20 years. We cannot escape climate change. Question is where. So let's use the opportunity. We should not look to negative aspect. Look to a positive one and the possibility to create jobs. Thank you very much. Sorry if I'm a little bit longer.
Thank you. So thank you very much for your presentation. And I think now we should be moving to our next speaker. Okay, so now after we've heard Alain, Alexis, that gave us a general overview and indicated two key messages, the resilience for one side and the other one, the business opportunities. We will now move forward to Daniel, a CEO at Embryo X, which is actually going to be talking with us about the business opportunities, about the innovation, and is going to be talking about urban and air mobility trends. So Daniel, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sofia. I would like to thank the AED Days organization for the invitation to join this panel. It's really an honor to be here today to share some of our visions for the future and the business opportunities that derive from the climate change challenges that we have that were very well addressed by Mr. Alain Alexis' keynote speech. So for us, it's also great to be here joining the Portugal cluster to talk about this topic. As you know, EMBRAER has a very strong presence in the cluster with our manufacturing facilities in Évora, the Alentejo region, also a very important presence in Alverca with OGMA, our joint venture with the Portuguese government. So it's, again, as a company that is really committed to the Portuguese cluster, it's a great opportunity for us to be here today. So when we talk about EMBRAER, we like to start with our core values. And one of them that is directly connected to the theme here today is to build a sustainable future. So I also enjoyed very much the way our good partner Rui from ALMADESIGN started his speech with the quote from the Brundtland report. We need to protect our future. We need to use the resources we have today in such a way that we're not putting at risk the future generations. So this for sure is one of the core values of our company. And it reflects in our product development strategy. One of the pillars of our product development is to design for the environment, which encompasses minimizing material consumption, energy consumption as part of our manufacturing and assembly activities, but it's also about selecting the resources and processes that will have the lowest environmental impact. It's about optimizing the product life cycle, which is not something we need to be concerned until we deliver our products to our customers, but it actually is a commitment that will go for the lifetime of the operation of our aircraft. So we are looking into extending the materials life cycle and also thinking about the disassembly, something that will come decades in the future, but something we need to be taking care of from the very early conceptual preliminary studies. And when we, of course, talk about the environmental impacts, the fuel optimization, the weight reductions, all the technologies that we deploy, they also target to minimize the carbon emissions, the noise, which takes us to some examples of how our industry and EMBRAER in particular is facing these challenges and at the same time opportunities. So our newest family of commercial regional jets, the family E2, is really the champion in terms of the lowest fuel consumption in its niche. Also, it's the quietest. This is the lowest noise emission aircraft in its segment as well. And those were targets, very bold targets, but that we were capable to achieve and that were paramount in our development effort. Another initiative that for us is very important is the sustainable aviation fuels. So we've been very proud to partner with the European ecosystem to foster the development of the sustainable aviation biofuels. We truly believe they are going to be key in the transition to meet the 2050 targets that Marcelino also mentioned. And we had already a significant number of flights to demonstrate the efficiency, the safety of the technology. And we keep funding research studies, both with our university partners in Europe, but of course also in Brazil. Brazil, as you all know, is a very significant producer of biofuels. And we also believe the country can play an important role in the supply chain for the future of sustainable aviation. Before I move to the technologies, I just want to mention the commitment is really a strong one throughout our company. And here I highlight commercial aviation because it's for sure the highest number of flights involved. Every day, every 15 seconds, there's an Embraer aircraft taking off somewhere around the globe. So it's a very significant part of our footprint when we discuss sustainability. But this is also a commitment from executive aviation, where we have already been using biofuels to fly our demonstrators to all the events where we go to show our products, and also of our defense. When we come to the defense area of our business, where the C390 Millennium is our most advanced product, and it's a true partnership between Brazil and Portugal, our Évora facility and also OGMA, they play a very important role in this supply chain. The Portuguese also engineering design competencies were key to the success of this program. The C390 Millennium then I think is a good example, a very efficient aircraft. But I would like to mention a new study we have just launched with the Brazilian Air Force. It's still a conceptual study where we are analyzing a hybrid propulsion light freighter. This could be a new category of transport already using hybrid electric propulsion, and it could become concrete as the first hybrid electric product to hit the market, which I believe is also a good sign of our commitment and priorities. Now, moving to technology, we've been experimenting and advancing the maturity of electric propulsion technology. We have already unveiled our electric propulsion demonstrator last year as part of the Embraer 50-year anniversary events. And we are approaching the first flight of our 100% electric demonstrator, the target being to acquire knowledge, to mature the technologies and get the company ready for what we believe will be the next age of aviation, and especially regional aviation. We are also studying the hydrogen fuel cells opportunity. We believe there's not going to be a single answer to the sustainability challenge. We'll probably need a combination of all of the above. So it's biofuels, it's electrification, but also hydrogen may play an important role. So we are working in partnership with TU Delft in the Netherlands and other partners to also advance the industry knowledge about this potential technology solution. Finally, as I come to a close, I want to talk about the Embryo X Mission. This is the Disruptive Innovation arm of Embraer. It's a company that I have the honor to lead today as the CEO. Embraer X was created to be a market accelerator, really to focus on very disruptive businesses. And our mission is really to transform how people engage with the world. How can we improve human mobility without creating an impact to the environment, a totally carbon neutral solution? And this is really a strong requirement, because if we take a look at the ICAO commitments of aviation industry, if we are to meet our 2050 targets, the only way to do it is if we go about creating a new market, a new vehicle, a new way to address the human mobility challenge. It has to be carbon neutral. It cannot add to the carbon emissions. And how can we do that? So this is where the disruptive innovation comes into play with the eVTOL concept, the electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicle, 100% electric. So it's battery powered with very low noise. And this is the product that right now our engineers are working on, a product that if successful, it would be the enabler of this entirely new way to address mobility in very large, crowded cities around the globe. And we see there is a clear market need, a clear market opportunity, but it can only become a reality if we really find a technology answer to build this bridge to the future without jeopardizing the environment. So that's one of the answers that Embraer X is currently working on. And I'll be glad to address questions and comments in the end of the session. So again, thank you very much for the invitation to be here today and to share our vision. It's an honor to partner with the Portuguese and European ecosystem, especially because of the very bold vision that Europe always brings to play, the very challenging targets that Europe drives, which we believe in total agreement with Mr. Alain Alexis, we can and must transform into business opportunities. Thank you very much.
Well, Daniel from Embryo X just told us quite a lot of information about the environmental aspects of the sector and gave us quite a lot of practical examples about how environmental issues are coming into practice in terms of the building of the technology and the materials used and all of that. But when you talk about sustainability, sustainability is quite a wide topic, and there is another strong component in the international agenda nowadays, which is related with diversity and with equality. And our speaker, our next speaker is Gretchen Dahlberg. She's from the International Business Development Unit at NORTHROP GRUMMAN, and she will be talking about exactly that, about how diversity can also improve competitiveness and how diversity can be relevant for companies. Gretchen, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Sofia. I just want to say hello and acknowledge all of the wonderful information I've heard so far. I'm humbled to be part of this panel today. I was invited somewhat last minute, and so I promise my presentation is brief, but I hope my points will be interesting. So I've been in aerospace or defense. Well, I started my career about 20 years ago in aerospace, moved to defense. And then the last 10 years, I've been more in software and the finance sector, doing a lot of artificial intelligence work. But now moving back to defense, this is really where my passion lies. And I am, again, grateful to be part of this panel and learn about AED and be exposed to so much information. But while I was working in finance, I had the opportunity to give a presentation to some women leaders in the financial sector. And in doing the research, found out that companies with diversity in their C-suite, in their executive team, gender diversity, had 21% more profitability than their counterparts without gender diversity in leadership. And similarly, companies with diversity in ethnic and cultural backgrounds in their leadership had about 33% better bottom lines than their counterparts without diversity. And this study was in the United States mainly, of course, but I thought when I was presenting to a group of women who have been knocking at the door for seats at the leadership table for years, that this really drove home the point that the more inclusive you are, the better it is for business. So here I am back in the defense industry. I just joined Northrop Grumman about 6 months ago. Odd year to be joining a company, for it doesn't matter what industry you're in, to be hired and onboarded without meeting anyone in person. I think we're all never going to get used to that, any of us who are used to interviewing in the traditional way. But 2020 makes us think, how can we connect differently? Who's working those frontline jobs, and how are we protecting the most vulnerable people in our community? So that's COVID. And then bam, we get hit with the George Floyd murder. And that happened right here in the city that I am from, the city where I live. So it hit pretty close to home. And looking at how people of color are treated differently in our communities, and that bleeds over into our workforce. Just 3 years ago, we had the Me Too movement. And when I was working in finance, you know, it impacted the finance sector, it impacted the entertainment sector, it impacted government, it was everywhere. So we know women and people of color are treated differently. And this has sparked worldwide changes. It's not just in the United States that people are thinking and challenging the status quo. But of course, as most of this panel is talking about, change is constant. We have to change. Our threats are changing, solutions are changing, and that means access has to change. It's not sustainable to exclude genders or people of color from decision-making tables or from product solutions. 20 years ago, when I joined an aerospace company, I saw very few women in leadership. When I moved to defense, even though I was part of a business team, I was often asked to take the notes at all the meetings, set up the dinners or any excursions that we were taking. I've worked internationally almost my entire life. So if we were doing a summit somewhere, I would be assigned to choose the hotel and the dinner locations, even though typically I probably had more education than half the men that were attending. And I was often the only woman at the table. I remember one particular summit in Iceland where there were 13 men and me. So joining NORTHROP this year, it was refreshing to see that our CEO is a woman, Kathy Warden, and a lot of our leadership team includes women. I'm not going to say it's 50%, but it's reaching up there. Northrop Grumman has been listed on Diversity Inc.'s Who's Who list of top 50 for several years running. This year we were number 15, and I'm pretty impressed with that. Northrop Grumman's an employer of 85,000 people, so that was good to see. We have a ton of employee resource groups, which I was also shocked to see, for Native Americans, Asian Americans, African Americans, LGBTQ community, people who are interested in the environment. There are groups for those people to get together and think of solutions outside of work, and also trying to bridge the age gaps and intergenerational learning, which is different. For myself, 10 years ago, it was different dealing with the millennials, and now it's even more different. So I'm glad that we're recognizing these differences, because each group has a lot to learn from one another. Oop. I feel like I've lost a slide. Huh, I think I have. The one thing about, so I'm talking to this slide, I don't have it up yet, but the one thing about the defense industry is there's a ton of potential for change. There's a lot of opportunity for inclusion. I think we can all agree that manufacturing is changing. It's not just metal bending anymore. So we've got less physical barriers to entry for people. STEM is a big push here, where they're encouraging young women and people of color to join science, technology, engineering, and mathematics programs in early education. The technology is changing so quickly that we have to be able to respond quickly. And the only way we can respond quickly is if we have diverse input from all walks of life to address the issues that are coming upon us. I just saw a program about professionals with autism and how they had been struggling to find jobs. And somewhere along the line, people started recognizing that people with autism have certain skill sets that are invaluable in the workplace, whether it's in numbers, pattern recognition, attention to detail. And so big companies are looking at ways to interview people with autism in a more of a problem-solving setting versus a social setting, which maybe people with autism struggle. So it's out there, the value of diverse thought. How can we bring it into our industry even more so to solve our problems? Since I've joined Northrop Grumman, I see how we are, and especially given COVID, how we're trying to do more with less. One of our products, the PGK Precision Guidance Kit, is a retrofit. So it's taking something that's already out there and retrofitting it versus coming up with a bigger, better solution and having to do away with that what's already out in the inventory. Back in 25 years ago, when I started my career, we had IEDs, And the company I worked for was manufacturing the MRAP. Now we've got drones, and Northrop Grumman's coming up with counter UAS solutions. How are we using artificial intelligence? How are we using lasers, radars? Everything is changing so quickly. We need all sorts of perspectives to come in and assist with solving those problems. I certainly don't know what the next challenge is going to be, but I believe as we learn to embrace diversity and listen to different perspectives and grow in tolerance, our products and our profitability are bound to benefit. Thanks.
Well, our previous speaker, Gretchen, she referred to another important issue about diversity, and she brought together the issue of diversity and competitiveness, which makes sense. Different people with different opinions provide with greater inputs for a specific topic. And thank you, Gretchen, for all of that, for the information and for your thoughts on those issues. Now we are going to hear Ibrahim Yimer, is the Vice President for Transportation and Manufacturing Division at NRC, and he's going to be talking with us about the large-scale collaborations for achieving a more sustainable aviation. And well, let's hear what Ibrahim has to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Sofia, and good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you for AED and the panel organizers for the opportunity to speak with you this afternoon on this very important topic of sustainable aviation. Of course, I come to you from Canada, and we have had a very interesting, collaboration, the start of a collaboration with the Portuguese cluster, particularly led by Rui, who is on the panel here, and I'd like to acknowledge his strong support to bring us together. It's all about collaboration that I'm going to talk about for the next 10 minutes. It's not about what we do, rather how we do it, and in that sense, it kind of links to the previous speaker, Gretchen's. Hence the title for the next 10 minutes. I'd like to share with you our thoughts on achieving a more sustainable aviation using large-scale collaboration. We have to also acknowledge what aviation has done so far. We're building on the success of the past. And in that sense, you've seen Embraer's E2 jets. They have provided incremental fuel efficiency. And in that sense, for the last 60 years alone, we've come along to 60% fuel savings and tremendous amount of reductions in NOx and noise. So the question is, what has changed now? What's the call for action? I would say first, the growth in air traffic is pacing much faster than the rate at which we are integrating all these improvements. And if we, for example, if you consider for the last 30 years, air traffic, for the next 30 years, air traffic will quadruple. And if we don't do much, or if we continue the same pace, we'll likely double our emission footprint. Yet, as has been talked in the panel, another major shift that we see is, the rate of innovation advancement in disruptive areas whether you call it AI or digitization or electrification, is coming at us faster, and also from very different groups, not traditional aerospace companies, and integrating them into the commercial fleet in a safe and timely manner is critical. So I'm sure you've seen that cartoon on the right 1,000 times, where the answer to the sustainability question is not coming from one or two solutions. Instead, it comes from a multitude of solutions. And that requires rapidly integrating these disruptive technologies. And aviation has maintained a stellar safety record, and this needs to be maintained as we do that. This record didn't come about by accident. Rather, it's the tradition of proving products at full scale, mainly through physical demonstration, in order to prove them they are safe for public use. You don't want to have high-profile accident on an unmanned systems that would set us back. So we need to maintain that tradition of maintaining that safety as we go forward. So having said that, these type of large demonstrations are massively costly. I think I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here. And the sketch here shows you the role of the various stakeholders in the ecosystem, particularly in Canada. And I would assume it's frankly the same is true in all countries. In order to realize this fast integration of sustainable technologies in a collaborative manner, you can see the quadrant is the well-known, the passengers quadrant that's superimposed over the graph that you see. And on the x-axis, you will see the advancement of knowledge or invention, whereas on the y-axis, the advancement of discovery. You may think the blue arc with the arrow as a TRL scale, where we progressively prove technologies from a bench scale or proof of concept into a full-scale operational environment. But as you do that, we all recognize the risk goes up, and as a result, collaboration and international as well as national to expedite the application of the solution is a must. So what I'll do in the next few slides is just to give you, illustrate the need for collaboration towards large-scale demonstration of sustainable technologies with other partners. My first example is advanced air mobility or urban air mobility. Danielle has touched a little bit about that, and it will certainly be part of the aviation sustainable future. The question is not if, but when it will be realized, frankly. So if you consider UAM or advanced air mobility, they are often powered by full electric or hybrid electric propulsion systems that will be reducing aviation's environmental footprint. Here's one such consortium we just launched in Canada, on the west coast of Canada, more specifically Vancouver, to demonstrate the application of advanced air mobility. You can see on the chart we have 22 partners already, ranging from universities to public transit authorities to industry as well as regulatory authorities. The first use case that we'll be demonstrating will be transporting medical cargo between hospitals and health institutes in the city of Vancouver. But other use cases are in the plans, including forest fires, fighting forest fires using unmanned systems. And this sort of consortium, and I'm happy to say that, is very open for international collaboration. And you can just reach out to us to that the website that you see on the title, CanadianAAM.com. Here is another example that I would like to illustrate the need for large-scale collaboration right where you are in Europe. It's an example that's focused on maturing hybrid electric propulsion system, the IMOTE project. It's a $10.4 million European program for over 4 years. And the objective is really to assess the potential offered by hybrid electric propulsion systems and optimizing it with the optimal configuration, aircraft configuration and architecture. Here we have also a large-scale collaboration led by UNRWA with 33 other partners and 11 nations including Canada and the NRC, and a perfect example of how we can actually de-risk the integration of these new novel technologies to achieve climate change goals. And coming from Canada, I have to say a few words about icing and freeze and cold, because I can see it's coming. As you all know, we also use aircraft as a research platform to monitor the impact of climate change on atmosphere. And here's another example that covers that. In this particular project that ended up this past winter, we had to put together a very large-scale collaboration of 13 partners with the US, Canada, Europe, and to gather a very tremendous amount of data in the Great Lakes region in the United States and Canada. The result, of course, will be used to validate weather models and issue travel advisories, etc., for the general public. Now, the next two slides, the next two examples that I'm going to share with you before I end are built over what we call an International Forum Aviation Research, which I actually represent as a vice chair at the moment. So it's, if I can use this forum just to share with you what IFAR has to do. IFAR is a forum of government research organizations from 26 different countries, altogether representing 34,000 researchers. And of course, Portugal is represented here via SEA. So collectively, we provide large-scale infrastructure and technology foresight to ecosystem partners. We manage large-scale technology demonstration projects like the ones that I just mentioned, and network also with various tiers of industry, including SMEs, OEMs, government agencies, as I outlined in the pastures quadrant chart. We also provide independent consulting, technical consulting, not just opinions, but we prove innovations and technologies on a large scale using these large facilities. So here is one example that's dated back to 2014, but we've continued to do similar projects even as late as last year. A project called Access 2. We have a number of IFAR members there. You can see NASA, JAXA, DLR, as well as my own organization, NRC. And the demonstration really involved an in-flight experiment where NASA DC-8 is flying at 40,000 feet, burning a 50-50 blend of jet fuel, JP-8 with a biofuel mix. And the real essence of the test is, we'll be chasing it with 3 different highly instrumented aircraft, both from NASA, DLR, as well as NRC, to measure the impact of biofuels on contrail formation at various distances ranging from some 300 feet to about 20 miles. So, so what you may say, we make this data accessible for use by industry, government, and regulators. And that, of course, advances the adoption of SAF or SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuels. Finally, the last one is probably very, given the keynote address today by Alain, is a large-scale clean sky project called BLADE. This demonstrates again the feasibility of introducing, laminar flow wing technology on a large airliner, an A340. That shows that it can actually save 10% in drag, which translates to 5% in CO2 emission. Airbus has led this with 20 key partners, including IFA members, DLR, NLR, ONERA, and INCAS. Since then, since 2017, the aircraft has been continuously demonstrating and testing various wing characteristics in flight. So finally, to conclude, in order to accelerate the adoption of these sustainable and disruptive technologies much faster than what we've been able to do in the past, without compromising the safety record of aviation, I do believe that large-scale collaboration that brings together all these stakeholders of the innovation ecosystem is much more critical than ever. And I really thank you for the opportunity to, once again, to have a chance to speak with you. And I look forward to the questions and the discussions.
Well, Ibrahim just told us about the importance of collaboration if you really want to speed up the technology that will allow us to be close or to reach the carbon neutrality. And he referred to the, to the need to accelerate all of these technologies, keeping, of course, safety as a key aspect on it. And I think his main argument was that in order for us to accelerate all of this, we need to work together. And working together, from the examples that you provide, sometimes we are joining 12 and 13 countries. So it's actually working with different cultures, diversity, as Gretchen also referred above. So it seems like diversity also contributes to new ideas, new technologies, so that we can move faster. And by diversity, it's a wide range of cultural aspects that they all make sense and they all contribute for us in order to identify new ways of doing things. And I think that Omer Bar-Yohai is a co-founder and CEO of Aviation Aircraft. I think he's going to give us some examples again about this technology that we need to develop so fast so that we can comply with our commitments, our environmental commitments. And in particular, is going to be talking about electric air mobility trends. So Omer, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, thanks for having us. It was much like many other of the speakers here, it was Roy's fault from ALMADESIGN, so brought us together and is actually the heart of our relationship with Portugal. The theme behind what I want to talk about shortly here has to do with the fact that we are a startup company that's building an all-electric battery-powered aircraft. And I think what it really means is that we have this preposterous or revolutionary or obnoxious claim, if you will, that goes, we actually think that sustainable, diverse actually makes for good business as well already, not in 20 years or 50 years. And that's really the heart of the claim here. What you can see on the screen right now is a picture. This is our Aviation Alice. It's a 9-seat, 9-passenger seat, so 11 in total, all-electric aircraft that was designed and built by us in the last 5 years. Oops, sorry about that. There we go. The Alice is built from the ground up to be electric. It flies 240 knots and it goes 540 nautical miles on a charge. So that's 1,000 kilometers for range. And by the way, what you can see here, besides the fact that this is kind of the buildup at the Paris Air Show in 2019, and it's really a cool picture, what you can see on the bottom left is the size of the charging solution that we've put forth over there. This is a 150 kilowatt charger. We have those going all the way up to 500 kilowatt. So it doesn't have to look like a render from the future. This is right here, right now. And the solutions for it are actually not as crazy as one would think. The aircraft, by the way, again, thanks to ALMADESIGN, what you can see on the right are actual pictures from the cabin. And it's beautiful because they made it beautiful. But eventually what we're building here is what we believe is the way people should fly, or the way regional transport should look like in the 21st century. So the aircraft was built from the ground up to be electric. It's not a conversion of anything. It doesn't look like anything you've seen before, because if you just built anything that looks like what you've seen before, you'll get a very short range, very low performance aircraft. It has to have a laminar wing. It has to have very clever design in terms of repositioning propulsors. It has to be built for the carriage of such a heavy and relatively large battery. We're carrying over 800 kilowatt hours of usable power. That's roughly 10 Teslas in a plane that's not dramatically bigger than a bus. So if you look at this, there are a lot of enabling technologies that come together to make this possible. Those enabling technologies obviously lie in the areas of high power electronics, of battery technology, of motor technology, but also, and I think even more importantly, they lie in the area of advanced manufacturing, lightweight materials. The real way to build an electric aircraft is to make everything else very light, because our energy source is just not as potent as fuel. Fuel is pretty good, actually. And then on top of that, you need to build something that's really sustainable. And I can relate very, very deeply to the points that were taken throughout this session so far, especially the last couple of points from Ibrahim and from Gretchen. We're looking at something that needs to, first of all, be an aviation product. So it needs to be safe. It needs to live up to those standards of the industry. And that means it's going to be painful. It's going to take a long time, and it's going to be very expensive to bring it to market. Trust me, I know. I'm trying to run a business that actually has no income and is raising funds to make this profitable and still break ground in this in the certification area, in the testing area, and in the design areas. And this is challenging. I think this is the only way to go, so it's worth it. But the idea of building a product that's just a mixture of the best you can pull from other industries and then putting it in the skies just has no validity. You need to build a system and a set of programs that has that kind of set of waterfalls of requirements, design, and eventually process that creates a safe product that people will want to use. And then I want to talk about sustainability in its deeper sense, because sustainable doesn't just mean let's save 5% on carbon emissions. Doesn't mean let's save 20. First of all, what about forget carbon emissions? That would probably be a better sense, but this is only environmentally sustainable. So you need to look at this from several perspectives. You want your product to be environmentally sustainable in the deeper sense, meaning you'll use less energy to move people around. You'll get that energy from renewable sources. You will not have carbon emissions, hopefully at all. And whatever carbon emissions or other footprint aspects that there are to your production process, to the maintenance procedures, let's try and offset. I loved what my colleague from EMBRAER said about looking at disassembly, at recycling, at the long-term ramifications of your product from the get-go. I think it's amazing that companies are looking at this. We're trying to do the same. And that's really sustainability in its deeper sense on the environmental side. But there are other aspects of sustainability. You need this product to be economically sustainable. It cannot be a toy for tree huggers. This needs to be a product that actually makes money for its operators. Otherwise, no one will use it. Otherwise, change will come too slow to make a difference. We are always talking about our goals and the fact that, governments and communities and people around the world are basically telling us as industrialists, as innovators, we want to have a smaller footprint and we want to change the way we impact the world. That's very true, but it's very limited to circles that talk about it. That's not enough. The thing that makes it enough is economy. The thing that makes it enough is for it to make economic sense. And that's really the promise of electric propulsion and electric aircraft. What this does in that concept of economic sustainability is it cuts off so much, not just of the decarbonization, doesn't just cut off all tailpipe emissions. It actually cuts off anywhere between 30 and 70% of your direct operating cost, because the power is dramatically cheaper. And more importantly, in my view, because maintenance is dramatically cheaper, the systems are simpler. So you can get to that point where you build a simple enough machine. Yeah, huge battery. Yes, a lot of investment in making this work and getting those numbers. But once you do, the maintenance costs and the energy costs are going to be so much lower that operators honestly will have no reason to buy any other aircraft for such a mission. And that's really the target of our company. This is the reason we've started. And that's really what we do. We want to change the way people travel regionally, but we want to do it through affordable, sustainable, and distributed aviation. And the focus of this company is this and this alone. I think, obviously, we do not do this alone. And I think this is another part of sustainability that needs to be discussed. If there is one thing this humbling industry learned in the last 6 or 7 months, is how fragile supply chain could be. How difficult is it to say, okay, we have that many signed contracts with with carriers all around the world, with freight carriers, with airlines, and really, are we going to be able to deliver? Are we going to be able to? Are these clients going to be around in a year's time after COVID? And I think it's the agility of this industry that's being put to the test right now. And we were very, very blessed and fortunate to have really a cluster of amazing partners that are able to carry this with us. And I think the combination of a long-term sustainable vision and something that's economically viable, that can make some player like Rolls-Royce, like Honeywell, like Parker Lord, come in and say, okay, we will put in a tremendous investment in non-recurring engineering because we see your business plan, we see your product, and we have faith in your ability to bring this forward, but also we have, let's say, the trust in the model that shows that this could work. We know the economy and we know this could work. And being able to sustain this story and to sustain this narrative throughout the supply chain in times of COVID is obviously not so trivial. I think the other aspect of sustainability that needs to be discussed has to do with what we internally like to call social sustainability. So I want this product to be something that clients actually want to climb into, that people feel that they want to go there. They want to use it. It has to be, for example, quieter than anything else out there. It could be because of the electric propulsion, but it has to be quiet, among other things, to allow for smaller, closer to the community airports to be utilized again, to be utilized in hours or in time of days that actually make sense for travel, and maybe today are not possible because of noise, because of emissions. Think about a day when living not far from a runway actually increases the value of your property and doesn't decrease it, because it's a tool, because it's quiet, and because you want to use it for your commute. This is the real promise of aviation. Obviously, urban air mobility and VTOL solutions are part of that promise. They're the pinnacle of what should and could be achieved in urban mobility. But what happens when you want to go 800 miles, 500 miles? What happens when you want to go for what today we call an hour of flight? Today, what you actually do is you either drive your car or you go in $1 billion facility, take your shoes off, stand in line, wait for a big plane, fly 2,000 miles in the wrong direction, 200 miles more in the right direction, then drive a bit, then get there. We're trying to solve this by moving the sustainability point and the price point for regional transport. And we believe this could be done very, very quickly. The aircraft we're building right now is very real and it's very hands-on. This is actually the build before the Paris Air Show. This was done in France. Obviously, it's a very global effort. It was incredible to see the variety of people already speaking on this forum. We're an Israeli startup originally. We started in 2015 in Tel Aviv. We have suppliers in 21 countries, not states, 21 countries. Risk-sharing partners in 7 countries, amazing team spread over Europe, the US, and Israel, and really a lot of people that came together to make something like this happen. I believe this is the only way to go about changing the way we fly. I think we need to make a business out of it, and we need to make a business that makes economic sense first, but also creates a stellar product and makes you or lets you climb aboard a plane that's what planes in the 21st century should look like. That's more or less all we had to say. But if I need to conclude the message here, I think at least with fixed wing, innovation and electrification of regional missions is possible today. It requires a lot of vision. It requires a lot of effort among not one player, but a consortium of companies that really come together and bring in not just the technology, but also the legacy knowledge and the reliability and the ability to manufacture at scale. And when these come together, you can build a product that both makes economic sense, but also changes the paradigm for how we travel regionally. We see it as the future of high-speed rail without the infrastructure. And we think this is where it should go. So thank you very much for your time again, and I'll be more than happy to answer questions once we do.
Well, our previous speaker, Omer, from Aviation Aircraft, he touched upon some very specific issues regarding the economics of sustainability, of course. And but I think we all agree that any business needs to, when you talk about sustainability, you are talking about a project, an idea that is able to have a positive impact in society. And by meaning that, it of course also needs to have some positive impact on the financial issues. So it's all, everything together, it's the real challenge. So the challenge is really to, how can we create profitable businesses with respect, respecting the environment, respecting the social aspects of our lives. And that's the real trigger that we are facing, especially in this sector where, of course, the CapEx investments are high, and therefore the investment approach also needs to be needs to take all of this into account. But then I'll leave this topic for further questions at the Q&A. And now I'll pass the word to Ricardo Conde. He's the president at Portugal Space, and he will be talking about space solutions for a better sustainability. Ricardo, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Sofia, and good afternoon, everyone. And I don't have any presentation, but and after to see this presentation with this nice aircraft, I want to have one in my backyard. Huh? This is it was really a nice presentation and good perspectives for the future. But so our conversations and our speakers are more or less focused on aviation, the problems that we are facing, and also tackle some problems for sustainability. And I want to address also to the space and the space point of view. And it was nice when the Rui Marcelino showed us this nice picture from Earth at the beginning, from Moon to show us the Earth. And I think it is more difficult to explore deep oceans than to go to the Moon, right? Even today. So that's probably this has implicity that we didn't take care enough of our home, so our planet, right? And we are always looking up and not looking down. This is what we are. This is what we need so far. And I agree with Alexia when he mentioned about the resilience. I do agree that COVID brought emergent situations, but also a new way to think better, probably think different, and think further, because we need the technology to disrupt and to use the technology to tackle the problems of sustainability. And of course, to think also in Europe, because Europe, we know that is the best place for living. And of course, we need to be the engine that rules the sustainability. And this drives me to start with some feelings that we have when we probably all we feel that we are facing serious problems in the coming years, and this is related not only with the way we interact with our ecosystem, but also the way we explore our environment. And this brings some responsibilities to Europe and those two countries with a huge mass of water, which is the Atlantic that we have in front of us in the case of Portugal. Probably you know that 5% of the European GDP is driven by maritime economy. And this, of course, brings many opportunities, also some responsibilities when we are looking to the economic activities that we are using, or we are projecting in our environment, in particular in the Atlantic. For example, we are talking about the maritime transportation, which is one of the big problems that we are facing in the future. Transporting goods from one place to another, the ships constructions, the ports, the tourism, also some new perspective for production like aquaculture in the open sea. Of course, the energy and the offshore energy, which is one of the topics in the Green Deal agenda. And of course, the blue biotechnology and the renewables energy. And of course, this brings us to another dimension of the discussion, which is the knowledge. And everybody knows that in these days that we are living, we are looking always for an answer for the science, and we are projecting our hope to getting a vaccine, to getting some tools to diagnostic. And of course, this is a moment, and this is a moment that we are living with some hope that the science bring to us some answers. So, and of course, the answers in the sustainability. And for that, for the science, we need data. And this is my focus here, because data is one of the sources of the knowledge. And we need to promote data in the several ways that we can get the data. Satellites is one of example. I want to share you one example how to use satellite in a sustainable way. For example, I remember in 2009, if I'm not wrong, European Commission started this monitoring of the North Atlantic environment for oil spills monitoring. It was started in 2009, and 10 years later, now, what we have is a North Atlantic, a clean sea with some sustainability also in the fisheries. And this was due to this monitoring, constant monitoring about what we are doing in our oceans, and particularly the North Atlantic. But the Atlantic is one body, links the Arctic to the Antarctic. So that means we need to extend these monitoring tools by satellite to the south. And for that, we need data. And the democratization of the data allows us to develop the downstreaming, allows us to bring more opportunities to the knowledge, and foster, of course, the science in the way we are see our environment, in particular these links between the space and the oceans, through the atmosphere. And not only we use satellites, using drones, in situ information, and this drives how the agencies, how the public policies, how the governments can tackle this problem about to have free, more precisely, more accurate data to develop the downstreams. And this is exactly what I want to share with you, that the Portuguese national strategy for space, we are tackling these problems in the several dimensions. One is try to get this data from the democratization of data coming from space, from satellites. We are trying to set up what we call the Atlantic constellation, constellation, to try to see closer, to see more often with high resolution, and particularly to feed what we call the digital planet, which is a platform that we want to foster to develop downstream application. This is our challenges and also our compromise for the decade. We want an European environment with discussing the data policies and not trapping this data in some big consortiums that they are the only objective is to sell data, not to foster and develop the downstream. So this is our objective, and this is our main goal for this decade, to promote these tools, and of course this data for this data, the open data for the knowledge, and of course to promote some business, and of course to promote certainly more sustainable environments, because we have the tools to look to all the ecosystem that we have in front of us and promote the sustainability of these environments. I can give you, for example, an example that comes to my mind, which is in the south. Some small islands like Cabo Verde, Santo Tomé, they are surviving. 90% of their economy is coming from the fisheries. There are a lot of threats for their economy, and they need, of course, tools over the Atlantic and over their areas to protect their environment, to protect their fisheries, and of course to have an equilibrium about their sustainability. So I want to draw your attention to the discussion that we need to promote in the European level, how to get better data, fast data, connect several platforms, and at the end, in the context of the resilience of Europe, to have what we call data sovereignty, because we are putting our data in the clouds outside of Europe. And this is not, of course, what we want in terms of sovereignty. And we need to look forward with improve our sovereignty of the data and use the data to better understand our environment. This is the message that I want to pass here. Probably I am the last speaker, but I want to link the aeronautic, the space, all the tools that we can make available to understand better what we are doing in this ecosystem, in this teeny equilibrium that we have. This pandemic brought us some emergency thoughts that we need to do something with the upcoming years. Otherwise, even we cannot breathe our air in 10 years. So I think I really like it to saw these nice aircraft in the perspective that bring to the sustainability of aviation. As I said, I want to have one of these aircraft in my backyard, but this is the way we need to look forward. Thank you, Sofia, and thank you for this opportunity also to share this emergency discussion that we want to put in nowadays, which is the democratization of the data to better understand our environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricardo. I think now we are moving for the Q&A session. We have about 5 minutes for some questions. We have some questions already that have been posed from the audience. So what I'll do is I'll ask a quick question to Alain, Alexis, and then I have another question to Daniel, and then a general question, and then we'll see how we can have your answers taking into account the time. So a very sharp question to Alain is, well, taking into account everything that we have heard and the fact that that this sustainability also pushes and puts a special pressure on the sector in terms of technology, in terms of potential carbon pricing. And of course, in order for us to have products available, they need to make economical sense as well. Does this mean that we will see more public funding coming into this sector, or will we see more public funding coming into a green sector, a green airspace, defense, aeronautic sector? So that's the question to Alain. Can you briefly provide with a short answer as well?
Sorry, I have to unmute now. Thank you very much for this. I think public authorities need to bring money, but not public authority, also company. I think it's if we want to have something which work, I think I'm convinced it should be public-private partnership. Because we share the same objective. The objective, we have an objective which is a political objective of green economy, but we have also an objective of competitiveness and the interest of company to invest in the future, not in the past.
Yes.
So I think it should be public-private partnership and not only public.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. Talking about public and private partnership in the private sector. A question to Daniel. Well, it seems like you already can measure some things, and you can measure. Can you measure already the benefits that you get and the impacts of designing for the environment? If when you design, taking into account these topics, does it increase the final cost, or the client is also willing to pay a bit more? How can we expand this from a regional flights into wider scale flights?
Thank you, Sofia, for the question. And the answer is that's the true challenge, is to meet the climate change requirements, the carbon, the noise requirements, the disposal, in the end of the lifetime requirements, without increasing the cost burden to our customers, the airlines, the operators, and ultimately to the flying passengers. So that's what makes it hard, but also what makes the challenge much more interesting. Because the current solutions for sure would not meet all of those requirements at the same time as the cost requirements. We'll definitely need to push towards new technologies. This will involve for sure the need for a very strong cooperation across the value chain of the industry. And that's what we've been doing together with our suppliers. But it also involves the cooperation with academia, with research, and of course with the governments, the policy makers, because the choices that each government or each region will make eventually will determine the speed that will allow the industry to get there. But one thing is for sure, there is no turning back, there is no other alternative. And in the future, it will not be about the green business and the other business. It's all the businesses will have to come together and to honor their commitments and allow for mobility to happen in a way that is safe, it's reliable, it's affordable, and it will protect the environment. Not an easy task, but I'm sure with the great collaboration that we have heard lots of good examples today, it's a very achievable goal.
Thank you, Danielle. And another quick question to Ibrahim. You told us about collaboration and the importance of finding new technology and new solutions via collaboration. And taking into account that this today was organized by the Portuguese cluster, my question is a bit biased because I'm Portuguese as well. So that's where I come in. So my question is, how do you see the Portuguese contribution to engage in further partnerships with the work that has already been done? How do you see this development taking place with further partnerships from different countries and taking also into account the work that Portugal has been doing?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sofia. And I think it's interesting. This panel came together through ALMADESIGN, through the connections that we have made. That actually shows you some of the strengths of the cluster, the specific areas of the cluster, which we saw in the interior design of the Alice. Here is a strength in the cluster that at least I have visited Portugal just I think once, that I'm able to see how well it's working together and reflecting its strengths in that particular domain. So that's one area for sure. And I think what I also want to say, related to Daniel's point, is the task is big. When you want to make sure that you have a viable business and you maintain the safety and really respond to the long-term goals of sustainability, I think that contribution or partnership that Portugal or the cluster has to bring is very much welcome, because no one cluster or no one group is able to really do it all or do it at the right pace. I would also see, some of the examples I think that sort of I try to show is not a North American example, but also European context, as well as, on the defense side, Portugal is a respectable member of the NATO alliance. And through there as well, I do see a lot of opportunities how your cluster can continue to engage. Having said all of this, the multilateral engagements and so on are important, but you also have to look at this bilateral country to country, or even a particular cluster to a particular cluster relationship. That's what I've seen in the past that's working well with other countries as well. And I definitely think, AED as a cluster itself had huge opportunities in the sustainable area through multilateral, bilateral engagements through the existing partnerships that we have, but also coming out strong with your own, critical or core competencies such as, interior design. Maybe just one last point there. We're at the time of COVID. And you know how our industry has been impacted so severely. And that puts interior design human factors into another level, because this may not be the only pandemic that society might face into the future. So again that sort of highlights the strengths of the cluster that you have.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Maybe just 1 minute more, and I ask a question to Gretchen, which is, in terms of finalizing this roundtable, my question is, what advice would you give to Portugal in terms of how diversity can promote even more partnerships? Now, because in Portugal, this cluster wants to engage and wants to do different things with different people. We already in Portugal are quite mobilized into the hydrogen, into the electrification of things. Let's put it this way. But your topic was also about diversity, and how do you think all of these things they mix up? What advice would you give us in terms of improving our appetite for competitiveness together with diversity?
Well, it's really about being open. And when I say open, yeah, this panel has been a prime example, I think, of people from all different countries and different perspectives. Because Portugal is a smaller country, and so, you know, sometimes maybe not the target of some of the bigger appetites. I will, you know, again, I speak from an American perspective, but I thought, you know, even just being invited into this panel and this event, not actually, you know, Portugal, to be honest, wasn't the top of my list. When I first started with NORTHROP, you know, I have a big remit, and when I got to Portugal, it just happened that the time was right, that this event was open, and he was open to inviting me in, which, you know, I've learned a lot, and I hope that this experience will just facilitate more exchanges. I didn't prepare an answer on this, but I think, especially with us working remotely, it gives us the opportunity to do quick introductions. Phone calls, emails are perhaps nice soft entries to learn more about people, and having time to come to events like this, it's really amazing. So it's just opening your field of vision.
Yeah,
Sofia.
thank you. Yeah, I was on mute. Now I'm not. Well, thank you very much. I think we are, you know, we have run out of time. Some keywords here are carbon neutrality, partnerships, environmental value chain. That was quite a lot of times. You also referred to value chain materials. We also talked about circular economy, not by the name of circular economy, but by materials and recycling of the materials. And we basically, throughout the process, we realized that there are several solutions for this big problem, especially if we take into account that air traffic is going to increase 4 times, which means that we maybe will not be only talking about carbon neutrality, but actually carbon negative, but that's a different story. And I'll leave you with this. And I would really like to say that I've also learned quite a lot today, and I hope our audience also enjoy this conversation. And I think that's it for me, and I'll pass to Rui Santos. I believe now it's up to you, Rui.
Yes, so thank you very much, Sofia, for this excellent panel and discussion. It was really interesting to have all these ideas and to understand a little better how can we try to achieve together a more sustainable world. So we are just closing on this afternoon and the day session. So we'll just have the closing sessions with Alberto Coelho, which is the Managing Director for the National Defense Resources Directorate, which will give us some final words about what's his view on these sectors. So please, Dr. Alberto Coelho, go ahead.